Welcome to episode number 4 of the Veggies Abroad Vegan Travel Podcast with the chief veggie pusher, myself, Rebecca Gade Sawicki. Some of you may already be familiar with Veggies Abroad, but for those of you who aren't, we're a full-service vegan travel company that offers custom planning services, small group trips, and even a helpful blog chock full of just about everything a vegan or veg-curious traveler could possibly need to plan an adventure. And I've recently added this podcast to the mix. With this podcast, I hope to bring you guys the inside scoop of what vegan-friendly, and eco-friendly businesses are doing in the wide world of travel. Plus, I'll give you the full download of what's going on behind the scenes at Veggies Abroad. A couple episodes ago, I mentioned that we've kicked off Veganuary and that I'm working on spreading the good veggie vibes, but we have yet to really tackle anything that could be helpful for anyone who is considering dipping their toe in the vegan pond or reducing animal products. Well, that ends today with this episode. But first, let's back up just a little bit. Some of you might be thinking, vegan what? What the heck is a Veganuary? Veganuary is a global movement and campaign that encourages people to try a vegan lifestyle for a month of January. The campaign was launched in 2014 with the goal of inspiring individuals to embrace plant-based living. During Veganuary, participants commit to following a vegan diet by abstaining from the consumption of animal products like meat, dairy, eggs, and honey. And when you sign up, you receive loads of great stuff to support your journey, like an exclusive cookbook with recipes from celebs, vegan meal plans, a shopping list, nutrition support, and much, much more. But why do it? The reasons why someone might choose to go full vegan or reduce animal products are varied. For some, it's the love of animals. They've started to realize that there's no difference between a cat or a dog and a cow. After all, most of us wouldn't eat our pets, so why eat another living being? For others, the environmental impacts, especially in the age of climate change-induced weather patterns, help push them over the edge. Globally, animal agriculture represents about 15% of all human-caused greenhouse gas emissions. Most people don't realize that to produce 1 pound of beef, it takes between 65 to 322 square feet of land and around 1,800 to 2,500 gallons of water, versus just 6 square feet of land and just over a gallon of water to make a Beyond type burger. And that doesn't even take into account the amount of waste and pollution that is produced by factory farms. The impacts of animal agriculture is devastating on our environment, which in turn affects the people who live near it and have to deal with the effects of human-induced climate change on a daily basis. Since Veganuary started, more than 3 million people have taken the pledge, but that doesn't count the loads of others who have done it on their own or actively just made swaps and changes. The campaign estimates it has reached over 155 million people since its inception. In addition to that, the campaign has helped launch nearly 1,000 new products and 1,000 new menu offerings around the world. At the end of the last campaign, a staggering 98% of respondents reported a significant reduction in their consumption of animal products after participating. Notably, 80% of participants claim to have slashed their intake of animal-based foods by 50% or more. That's incredible. I know some of you might be thinking, well, I wish they would have gone fully vegan. But number one, you got to start somewhere. And number two, we can make more of an impact by trying to get millions or billions of people attempting to make a change and disrupting the system rather than trying to focus on just a small amount of people doing something perfectly. While Veganuary has had a lot of success, there are still plenty of people who think it's just too hard to do it. I can't do it, or I would never, ever want to do it in a million years. To be honest, before going vegan, I was a vegetarian, and the thought of giving up dairy products blew my mind. How in the world could I live without cheese and ice cream? It really makes me laugh now, but it was honestly a real challenge at the time, and I had to take some real serious Bill Murray baby steps. Anyone catch that What About Bob movie reference? To make it happen. But for some of you who aren't even vegetarian yet, or maybe in a relationship with someone who isn't, it might sound like a bridge gone too far. When I first met Matt, maybe after a month or so of dating, he flat out told me, if you think you're going to make me a vegetarian, you've got another thing coming. We should just end the relationship. At the time, I was young and naive, and I didn't think that this would be long term. So I brushed it off. Well, long story short, it ended up becoming a long term thing, and he did change. Not because I gave him an ultimatum, he did it all on his own, and he's my guest today. I fought a little bit about having my significant other as a guest. Seems kind of cheesy, doesn't it? But honestly, I think for this topic, it really works and could be a good listen for someone at the same crossroads. With that, Matt has patiently been listening to me give this intro. So let's get over to the interview. Thank you for joining me today, Matt.
Thank you for having me. That was some intro.
I thought you'd get a kick out of it, especially at the end. So we have to get into the meat, no pun intended, of this. So what initially made you declare that you would never give up meat? It's not like when we first met, I said, this is the road you've got to take. But you felt the need to tell me that you would never do it.
Well, I think first I kind of had an inkling that I really like this person, and I really can see myself with this person like longer term. I thought, she's a really good person. She treats me really well, and she's just got a really good heart, and she's kind. But at the same time, like, just knowing that you were vegetarian at the time, knowing that you were a vegetarian and I had this history of meat eating family and meat eating holidays and all of this toxic masculinity maybe as well. It's like, I don't think I can give that up. I'm not sure that I would ever be able to do that. And just knowing you at the beginning, like, am I going to do that for a person? So at that time, it was like, no, I mean, I got to tell her, like, I like you. I don't know if I'm changing yet for you, though. So,
but you didn't think you liked me that much.
maybe. Fair.
I mean, I guess I get it to a point for sure. But something obviously changed. And you did decide to dip your toe first in becoming a vegetarian. What made you decide to do that?
Well, I kind of always considered myself a practical person. Maybe you don't. I don't know. But I feel like I'm more or less practical. And I think the stage in our relationship where I said, I'm not giving up meat is probably different than the stage in our relationship where I said, I think I'm going to go vegetarian. I think it was 2011. We had just gotten married. And the thought in my head was, if I am making food or we're making food together, does it make sense to buy a bunch of meat just for me to eat? Like that was the initial thought. And as I got to know you and we had started like maybe venturing into some of these, you probably placed them, strategically. But as we started watching some of these like documentaries and things like that, like slowly these thoughts started like entering my head, and it was like, yeah, I got to give up meat. But then the thing was never giving up cheese.
We'll get to that. We will get to that. The cheese thing always seems to be a real kicker for just about everybody. There recently were a few studies shared that vegan food might not be manly enough to attract men. Do you think that this played a role when you were first considering giving it up, that like this would affect you, in being manly man?
Maybe subconsciously that would affect me. I don't think I outwardly would say I'm not manly enough to,
Well, not now, but then.
Yeah, but I guess it's really hard to look back on yourself and say like you were weak and you were pressured and by your peers to continue eating meat. It's hard to say that. I think knowing me, I don't feel like I'm someone that's always like succumbed to peer pressure. Maybe family pressure, yes. That's the type of peer pressure maybe I succumb to. Um, but as far as like peer pressure because I had to be a man and eat meat, I don't know if that was the exact thing, but 100% people out there that are men feel like that. Like, yeah, I can't give up meat because when I go to a restaurant with my friends or hanging out watching a game, and sometimes we're sitting there eating chicken wings or something like that, and a group of friends, it's like, yeah, there's no way you could say, "Oh, I'm vegan, so I won't be eating those chicken wings," because people will judge you. Toxic masculinity.
But you didn't did you worry about that though in the beginning, that judgment?
I don't really recall ever worrying about that specifically, but I can see 100% where other guys would feel like that because, I mean, I don't know how much I know women are judgy towards other women about like clothing choices and things like that. I think men are judgy to other men about like, yeah, we're hunters and you're just a gatherer. You are
You're just a
you,
gatherer.
you are not really a man if you're not eating this giant juicy steak. Don't you miss that? Like that kind of thing.
Mm.
Like
That is a popular question for sure.
it's unreal. But anyway, I going back to your original question, like I don't remember ever feeling like that, but I can 100% relate to other guys that do feel like that based on conversations with my father. As you know, he more than anyone else would have been the person putting the peer pressure, like family peer pressure, cultural heritage, that kind of thing. It's like, this is what we do, son. We eat this food, that kind of thing. So,
That is a great segue into what I was gonna ask next, and if your decision to drop meat affected your relationship with friends and family. So, obviously, there was a bit of an issue with some of them.
oh, yeah, 100%. There was an issue with my dad, with my brother. I would say those are the two people that gave me the hardest time about it. And thinking back on it, I want to say that they felt that way because they didn't understand like my choice. They didn't understand like why I had decided to do something so radical to them.
Do you think it was the fear of the unknown for them?
I think it was the fear of change. I think it was less about a fear of an unknown and more like my son is changing. He's going to be different. Our holiday traditions and our family traditions that we've had for, my whole life are now going to be different. And I think for someone like my father, maybe my brother to an extent too, like going through that change, like initially of not having things like the same with someone who'd been so constant might have been pretty difficult for them.
So then, when you were first vegetarian, did you change holiday traditions? Did they change holiday traditions for you? How did you manage some of those group kind of activities and things like that where everyone came together and food was kind of a central point?
Well, vegetarian was easy, I think, because there's always side dishes that don't have meat in them. Typically, I could go to like a family event and there'd be enough side things that weren't meat that I could load my plate up with that and I could eat things like that. When I became vegan, I think it was much, much more difficult with respect to my family. For them to like welcome me into meals and things like that. And part of it was just not really knowing, exactly what to feed me. Not really knowing, uh, not really knowing how they should, interact with that stuff, to the point where I just think it was like, well, I don't really even want to try. Um, like, we're gonna do the things we've always done, and we're gonna do them our old way. And he's only one person. We don't really need to change for him. And there are times when they did try, like they would try and um, prepare things for me that were vegan. Um, and I think that's great. Like, if you have somebody over to your house, you want them to be able to come and enjoy themselves and eat. I guess there are times when um, you just get to a point where you're so comfortable with that person and you know that they're vegan, and you're just like, well, whatever, fend for yourself. You can figure that out.
So you think the vegetarian part was a little bit easier than the vegan part with managing family expectations?
It was 100%. It was way, way easier to manage expectations as a vegetarian versus being a vegan. Vegan, I think, is just like this negative connotation.
Mm. Do you think that they wanted to learn more about why you were doing this, or they just thought, okay, he's absolutely lost his mind. He's become this crazy liberal schmuck. We just need to throw him in a ditch?
Well, I mean, politics definitely somewhat play a role in that. But I also try and not get too political with my family. And I wouldn't say they'd ever want to just throw me in a ditch. Like, I think that's strong.
They might a little bit.
Well, maybe. I mean, they definitely don't want to be around me. There's certain times. But as far as them like asking me about it, and really asking me questions specifically why, or how I feel about animal products and things like that, or why I made that decision, I think that to them it's like, okay, we don't want to open Pandora's box. I really don't want to hear about animal cruelty. I really don't want to hear about how these dairy cows are raised and then have their babies stripped from them right after they're born. Like, I don't want to hear about all that stuff, because it's going to make me feel different when I go to eat my food for the next 15 minutes while I'm thinking about what he told me. I don't think there's any reason why they would ever ask me about any of that stuff. And for me, I won't bring that stuff up unless I'm asked about it, because I don't want to make people uncomfortable.
That's an interesting point. Do you think you also, in the very beginning, didn't want to hear those things because you were worried how it might make you feel about some of that stuff? So that's why you put up your initial kind of wall against it?
I think you're right. Yes. I mean, to some degree, at the beginning, it was like, I don't want to think about like all the poor animals. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's like when that, is it the ASPCA commercial comes on and there's all those super sad
With
animals?
Sarah
Yeah.
McLachlan, yes.
And that music starts playing and you see those animals and it breaks your heart. Like, I don't know, maybe they need to like make some of those commercials for becoming a vegan,
For vegan.
because those commercials are effective.
They are. That is a really good point. So we jumped into you becoming vegan, but we didn't talk about what provoked that change, because just like when you declared, I will never give up meat, you also declared that you would never give up dairy. And I remember when I first went vegan, you were like, oh, okay, I gave up the meat stuff. I'm a vegetarian. Like, I can do this, but I can't do the rest of it. And then lo and behold, on your own, one day you declared that this was what you were going to do and you made the change. But why?
I feel like my biggest hurdle is I just love pizza so much. And like, I never really wanted to give that up. Like, I had cheat when I went vegan, or when I went vegetarian, excuse me. I had cheese pizza like every Friday, and I probably would go and pick up a hot and ready here and there, and it was like, oh, it is
For
so
those of you who aren't from the
good.
Detroit area, a Hot and Ready is from a Little Caesars pizza chain that is very popular here. It's quite crap, but it's popular
It's
here. I don't understand why.
$5 for like a
Yeah,
whole
well,
pizza.
now you all can understand what you might get for $5. Let that sit with you. So why
Touche.
go vegan? Why go vegan?
So I started thinking about the things that we were seeing in the documentaries, like Cowspiracy and some of the other ones, and talking to you about some of the slaughterhouses, and all of this stuff. It just, why would I ever want to be a part of that? And I mean, I love animals so much. I I love our pets, and I'm never going to eat our pets. I don't ever want to, drink milk from any of our pets. I just, I don't need any animal products really to live my life the way I want to live my life. And for me, like, the veganism even became, kind of stages. I don't. When you say you're vegan, like, right away, I think that might be like food wise, but then when you start thinking about, sustainability and the products that you're wearing and where you get things, um, you start to see different levels of it. And to be a better person, if you're always striving to be a better person, then I think the best way to do it is to try and be the change you want to see. And for me, the change I want to see is people not relying so heavily on animal products. And so that's kind of where I've gotten to veganism.
That's an interesting point with the kind of the stages of it because I think you're right. You initially tackle the cheese and the milk products and things like that, but then you does open your eyes to other things that are you have in your daily life. What provoked you to start thinking about, things like your shoes and your clothing and even your car?
I think, like I said, just wanting to be a better person, wanting to rely less on the suffering of animals to make my life more comfortable. Um, I just don't think that's a trade off that I'm willing to make anymore. Um, and it's a challenge at times. I mean, I don't think you can always be 100% vegan in this world where you only use um, plant-based products. Um, and I think that trying to do it is a really good start, and I think it's commendable. And I think the people that are out there, struggling with all the animal products that are in their life and trying to get rid of them, like you said, it's what about Bob? It's baby steps, baby steps.
Did you at any point in that process feel so overwhelmed that you wanted to give up?
I don't think I ever felt overwhelmed to the point where I wanted to give up. Um, Certain smells to me, like, make me think, oh, that really smells good. But then when you think about the suffering associated with those smells, it's like, yeah, it might smell good, but it doesn't smell so good that I want an animal to suffer so I can smell that.
Yeah. What about when you are in a group activity or going out to a restaurant or with family again now? Do you ever feel like you're missing out? Or maybe even in the beginning of your journey, how did you kind of manage that and not feel like, oh my God, I'm the weird kid that has to eat the bag of pretzels kind of thing?
Well, I think I'm flat out just not invited to certain things because they're like, We're not gonna invite the crazy vegan because
That's that might be
then we
possible
have
at
to
this
make
point, but in the
accommodations.
beginning in the beginning.
In the beginning, though, like, um, I think you just have to have that mindset that, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm living my life. This is what I've chosen to do. Even though I'm excluded from things, you can't you can't control that. And if you're still invited, even though everybody else is doing one thing, it's not wrong to do something else. It's not wrong to, you know, order a Beyond Burger while everybody else is having like hamburgers at a party. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, it's difficult if you're invited to a house party and there's not really many choices. I mean, so you maybe try and bring your own thing, or call ahead and be like, "Hey, what are you planning on serving? Is it okay if I bring something for myself? Do you mind that?" And I think just having more of a conversation with people, not so much about like, "Why are you vegan?" Like, just about what it's going to be like if I'm there, and not making it like stuffy or making them feel like, "Oh, I've got to accommodate this vegan." Um, I think that's probably the best way to handle situations, because a lot of times people don't want the vegan there or someone that's different because they don't really know how to serve them or how to handle them. And I think ultimately people want to make you happy. And
Mhm.
if you're there and you're not eating and everybody else is eating, then as a host, I would feel like, oh, you're not having a good time and you're not happy.
Yeah. Do you feel like now or even before that you're missing out on anything?
Missing out, maybe some family things. I sometimes feel like I'm missing out, but not like in the sense of like I'm missing out on all that food that
Yeah, I meant food,
oh,
not people, sorry.
okay. Then I would say, like, as far as food goes, like, no, not really, because I think anything you can eat, I can eat vegan.
Oh, this is gonna turn into a sing-song kinda podcast, isn't
Maybe it
it?
is. You didn't know this podcast was a musical, did you?
No, I didn't. I hope you can dance too, because that will become a part of
Well, if you
it.
want to scare your listeners away, we can definitely put me on the video dancing, but let's avoid that.
They might like that.
It's not.
But no, I mean, in the beginning, thinking back, like, did you feel like you really missed out on, staple things like ice cream and cheese, everybody's absolute favorite thing to love?
I mean, I don't know if missing out is the right word. Like, I don't feel like I was missing out. Did I miss some of that stuff like at the beginning? Yeah, but casein is in dairy products, right? And that I think is a very highly addictive substance, and that's probably why it's so hard for people to give up dairy is the casein. And
Mhm.
what's crazy is that they have invented like vegan casein now, like from cells, like they can make like products with casein in it, and they're vegan because they're not taken from animals other than maybe the cells, right?
Correct. Yes, they use the cells to like hair. No animals being murdered in order to do it, but they use the cells from the animal to create meat products that are actual meat and to create dairy products. That's actually dairy has whey and everything else in it. It's exactly the same thing.
So societally, I think if society were to say, if we take these products and we replace these animal products, it might get to a point where it's cheaper for us to grow these things from cells versus growing animals with all the water and the space and the deforestation and all of that stuff. So
Yeah, that is absolutely I think the goal with all of that is to get to that point because it would absolutely be more sustainable in more ways than one. But how did you manage swapping out some of those things that are, kind of addictive or very popular and well loved?
I mean, I think it's just willpower. You have to tell yourself, I don't want to use these animal products, and there's perfectly good replacements, which over time you'll probably come to really like and love. And I think that that's the way to do it. You just for me, that's the way I had to do it. I don't know what works for everybody else, but like cut yourself off from that stuff. Instead of seeing, you know, a pile of cheese, you can see a pile of cow's milk that was taken from a mother cow who lost her baby cow, and then that was made into like this cheesy, stretchy, gelatinous product.
You did a really great job selling that. Okay, so now that we know how you mind over mattered that, what did you swap those products with?
Like dairy-free cheeses for
Yeah,
one.
but what kind?
Oh,
Like, what are your
my
favorites?
favorite, Vio Life.
What do you think helped you with that? Like, were there certain ones that you were like, "Okay, I don't need to think about that because this is just fantastic."
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I think I'm a better cook now than I was before I was vegan, because I don't know if it's just time, not the spice time, but just time, like as in clock time. I think that I think that over the years, as I've gotten better at cooking and as I've learned new ways of cooking and learned to cook different things, I think I've become more varied, and I think I can make almost anything vegan that's that you would make, not you specifically, that other people would make as a meat eater, carnivore.
Mhm. It forces you to be a little bit more creative.
And as you can probably attest to, we've had some really good food. And usually when I make something I really like, I'd say, I think I could serve that to people.
That is true, you do say that. That is your favorite thing to declare if you feel like something is exceptionally good. During this time, though, when you were transitioning first to vegetarian, then going full vegan, you also took up running. And that wasn't something that you were into before all of this. And so, anybody who's listening, if you decide to like take up something that, requires additional athletic capacity, it takes some time to kind of reconfigure things with your body and to adjust your diet. Do you think that, going vegan or vegetarian and then the running complemented each other? And were there things that you had to do differently as you like really became a, massive runner?
I don't think I was a runner before I was a vegetarian. I don't think I really started running until like 2013. And I just really love running. I just can spend a lot of time running. I like the way I feel when I run. I like the way I can just escape and not think about the world. Um, and then when I'm done with my run, you get the endorphins and you feel really happy and you feel real good. It's a great way to start your day. Um, and I think that being vegan, if you're running all the time, you can probably, if you're not paying attention to it, you can not get enough. I hate saying this, but not get enough protein, and you can lose a lot of weight. So for me, what I'm always mindful of is making sure that I have a daily plant-based protein shake, and that I take really good care of my body with like the vitamins that I put in my body, the food that I'm eating. But the beauty of it is that I can eat as much as I want, anytime I want. There's not really a filter on that. If I want to like binge on some junk food once in a while, then I can do that. And if I want to eat, you know, a whole pizza, I can do that because I run so much that is good for me. That helps me.
Do you think you became a better runner by going vegan?
I don't have anything to compare it to, but I feel like my body recovers quickly um, versus some of the people that I run with. Um, I don't feel like I'm often injured. I often have some aches and pains, but that's because of my running. But um, I feel like I overcome those pretty quickly.
Did you ever at any point worry about not getting enough protein or not getting enough, nutrients to kind of fuel this or even to fuel your regular diet when you were going vegan?
No, I never really paid attention to all that stuff. Like, I probably should have been paying attention to that stuff, but like, I've become more self aware thanks to both you and to becoming vegan. Because before it was just like, whatever, I don't really care. I have whatever I want.
That is true. I do recall some of that, but you weren't as active. I don't think you were as mindful of a lot of things maybe prior to this adventure that you went on.
I can say that I recently ran a marathon, and I don't know where we were, but on one of our travels, and we're like, okay, well, I saw a scale in the bathroom, like, I'm going to weigh myself, and I don't do that all the time because I'm not someone that worries about his weight, but I remember getting on that scale when we were in that awesome trip you just had to Thailand. And I got on the scale and it said like 66 kilograms, was it?
You were about just a little over 140 pounds. There was not much to you. Yes. I'm not sure that I would be like highlighting this for the public to know that you were needed to eat a lot of food because you run too much.
Well, I'm just saying, like, that's the most recent time or any time that I can remember where I was like, I don't weigh enough. Like, I need to be more mindful of how much I'm eating and what I'm doing. And this is probably not the most healthy weight for me. I never felt bad. I always felt great, but like, I was probably a little too skinny.
You were, and I'm sure your dad would attest to that as well too.
Well, and I know when I saw him before we went on that awesome trip to Thailand that you took through Veggies Abroad, I was like at my dad's house and he said to me, son, you're looking real skinny. Are you okay? Like, he was like worried about me. He's like, son, what is going on with that weight?
That's great. I hope for listeners listening, if you're considering this, please be mindful of eating regularly and not running too much so that your dad doesn't give you a hard time about it and think that vegan stuff is trash. Anyway, back to the more important matters at hand. When you did go vegan, or even, I mean, now, before, now, during, did you face any unexpected challenges?
I think like at the beginning, like finding that the things I were eating were just always the same. And that could be true for non-vegans where you just like, I feel like my diet is so like just bland, not even bland. It's just like I'm eating the same things all the time. I mean, to some degree there's comfort in that, eating the same thing all the time, then there's like not just comfort, but like also knowing that like what you're eating is healthy for you and you're getting, the right amount of macro and micronutrients, from the things that you're eating. So like there's that. So that's part of the reason like why you eat the same things. But at the same time, you want to vary it up and you want to try different things. And I think the challenge is not getting into a rut of always just eating the same thing for me. And so like finding new recipes and trying different things to make, and then getting excited when you can make it for other people, and then having positive reinforcement when they're like, that's really good. Like those things help me get through like those kind of challenges of falling into those ruts.
Were there surprising things that you didn't expect after going vegan?
I mean, coconut bacon is pretty delicious. Like you don't love it. I love it. But I think coconut bacon, like with Brussels sprouts, like I was the
I think it's just fine. Matt is kind of obsessed with it, and I don't understand the
I
obsession,
don't
if we're clarifying this.
I was the pickiest eater growing up. Anyone in my family will attest to that. Like, oh, it's Matt. He eats hot dogs. He eats peanut butter and jelly. He eats chicken nuggets, McDonald's when I was little. Like that's what I grew up on. That's probably why I'm short, because it's done in my growth. But um like now it's like almost everything. I just like eating so many different kinds of
Yeah,
food.
that is a really interesting change because even when I met you, you were kind of picky, but now you'll try just about anything. And when we travel, you're really open to things. So when we travel, do you think being vegan has like lessened your experience or made things more difficult?
I don't think it's lessened my experience in the least. If anything, I feel like being vegan has enhanced my travel experience. Because when we travel, we're trying to find all these different vegan restaurants, and they're in like different parts of town, and they're usually kind of like they're like in some hip parts of town sometimes, where like more of the youths go, like that kind of thing. And it's like we find these places, well, you find these places, and you find like some of the best food like around, and it's like you're in a completely different place, you're trying completely different things, and it's like all of the senses are just overloaded, and it feels so good. Like it's like, wow, like that food was really really good, like in all these different places that we've been to. So like in my mind, being vegan when I travel is way better than you know when I wasn't vegan.
That's pretty good. You might want to put that on a t-shirt. I like that. That's a good advertisement right
That's
there.
a lot to put on a t-shirt.
Maybe a big t-shirt, not a t-shirt for you to wear.
No.
So, if someone came to you and is like, "I'm considering this, but I'm stressed out. Like, I don't think I could give up certain things, or I'm worried about what people will think of me." What advice would you give them?
If someone came to me and wanted advice, I would tell them I'd be glad to share any recipe with you. I would be glad. I would be glad to have you come over. I would cook for you if you would like some food. But if you don't live near me and you want to go vegan, I would say first, if you want to take baby steps, you don't have to go straight into like not buying any product made from animals from the very beginning. You need to do what is most comfortable for you and what's going to make it easiest for you. And cost wise, I mean, there can be a cost with some of this. I don't think it has to be expensive. I think people blow that way out of proportion. People think like, oh, well, if I was vegan, I could only eat beans and rice because I can't afford anything else. I think that's hogwash. I think that you can be vegan and you can create wonderful dishes and you can do it affordably. So buy a good vegan cookbook, look up reviews online, find different recipes that you like.
Do
Um,
you have any favorite cookbooks?
uh, I hear she's not vegan now. Is this true? But I really like the Minimalist Baker.
Yes, it is true. I think that revelation came a while ago, a couple years ago.
Which really bums me out because I mean, I like a lot of her recipes. Um,
Well, that has nothing to do with it. Her recipes are still good,
that's true.
and she's still a good
That's
resource
true.
to
Yeah, yeah,
use.
yeah. I agree. But I like I mean, I like eating Indian food. I like making Indian food. I really like naan. I really like making like uh, bread products. I really like baking. Baking is my favorite. Um, but like you can make a really good vegan naan. She has a really good vegan naan recipe. Um, I would say
What about for people who are dining out or have to deal with family? Do you have suggestions of how to deal with that?
Dealing with family is tough because I think families are most comfortable with you being the way that you are, that they don't want to see you different, and they don't want their lives to change because you're changing, and they don't want to feel like they have to change. I think having the conversation when you can have it with them, like, can go a long way, or just figuring out ways to make them feel comfortable when you're going to be there with them at family gatherings, like bringing different types of food with you if you have to, or, if they're going to make something that's like a family dish, maybe you can veganize it and bringing it with you so they can try a different version. Um, but if you're not comfortable, like, having that talk with them, you just got to give it time. And I think, like, for me, it just took time. I think they just know this is who I am now. This wasn't just a fad. It's this is the choice that I've made, and they try to respect it. But with that familiarity they have with me being vegan now, it also has made certain situations, not all, maybe just my brother. It's made it so he's kind of just like, well, if you're coming, you might want to bring yourself something because I'm not going to have anything for you, which can be disappointing. But, I don't expect when I go somewhere that someone has to cook for me. And that might be a good thing for people to do too, is not just expect someone to cater to you because you're vegan, but don't be offended if they don't. Just be prepared, I would say, is the best way to deal with family. Be prepared when it comes to food. And if you're going to have a conversation with them, be prepared for, like, the common questions. Where do you get your protein? Like, those kind of things. Like,
Do they ask in a Yoda voice as well?
they don't. They don't, thankfully.
Oh, yeah, I'm really glad about that, because that would just add to the question.
But wouldn't you say that's good? Like, some of that's good advice. Rebecca, what would you say is good advice for people?
I think some of that is a good way to start. I think you have to manage your own expectations and don't just jump full bore into the pond and think that you can swim right away. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to need to tiptoe into things. It's okay to ask for help. I think finding a community, whether it be online or in person, can really help a lot. There are a lot of vegan groups that are location specific on Facebook. And so, talking with people through that, and some of them do meetups. There are quite a few organizations in different cities as well that host meetups and do online events. And that can be really great. I think finding community can be a huge, huge help. When I first went vegetarian, I had my sister, and that was a huge help because I always had someone to talk to about it, because otherwise I would have been a lonely island. And then when I went vegan, I knew other people who were vegetarian or vegan light. And so that was really helpful as well. We had commonalities. And so I think when people don't have someone to depend on, to go to share food with, or talk about food, or talk about their challenges, that can make it really difficult. So, really prioritizing the baby steps and community, I think, would be my two biggest suggestions for folks. For you now, what are some of your favorite vegan foods to eat? And do you have other favorite things that you do that you think can help other people?
Well, as far as my favorite vegan foods to eat are still a lot of the foods that I've always eaten. I still love pizza. I like to make it from scratch every week. Doesn't matter, like, if it's deep dish, like a New York style thin crust, like, all of it. I'm in for all of that. I just sub out the cheese and throw some Beyond sausage on there. It's so delicious. Like, I could eat that like every single week, and I do. I'm excited to try basically anything these days that's vegan, or try to make anything vegan. on our recent trip to Thailand, like eating pad thai in Thailand, like fresh noodles, pad thai. Oh, it was so good. And like local ingredients. When you can make things with local seasonal ingredients, that just makes everything that much better to me. It really just elevates the food that you're eating. Um, and as far as advice for people just going forward, like you said, I think find a community um, where you can be yourself, be vegan, and talk about some of these things when you need to. Like that's a good avenue. I would also say like more advice would be if you get into a conversation where you're uncomfortable with the way somebody is talking to you because you're a vegan, you can leave that conversation. You don't always have to win every conversation. You don't always have to have an argument with somebody because you're not always going to convince people why it's a better way to live. And I found that there are some people that they just see animals as products. And I don't know why they feel like that. I'm sure they don't feel that their pets are products, but those people aren't the type that you're going to convince. You can try, but you're just going to end up probably getting into an argument and getting frustrated. But even when you're frustrated, I think you should believe in yourself and always try to be the best version of yourself. And if that means you want to have that argument with that person and you've got some solid facts to throw back at them, then that's the best that you can do. So, read books. Ed Winter's books are awesome. This is Vegan Propaganda. Great book. Watch documentaries. Um, and,
Do you have a favorite documentary?
nothing that comes to mind. I remember we watched this isn't really a vegan one, but it kind of makes you want to be vegan and not eat fast food. But do you remember we watched the one about the guy that ate McDonald's for like 30 days
Yes.
straight?
Super Size Me. I
Super
think that
size
might have
me.
been before you went vegetarian.
Yeah. But watching something like that and is like, dude, look what this stuff does to you. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit extreme. I think for other documentaries, if people are interested in trying to learn more or have a better understanding of how this change can affect them or affect the world around them, Game Changers is a great one. It's focused on athletes. There is a climate documentary called Before the Flood. I think Leonardo DiCaprio does the voiceover for it. There are quite a few others on Netflix that are pretty impactful and can help. Cowspiracy, as you mentioned in the beginning, is great. Earthlings is another. I have not seen it. I have heard that it is a good one. And I think too, gauge what you want to get out of it. Because if you're looking for a more educational one, then you kind of need to search for some of that stuff because some of them can be a bit difficult to watch. So, you need to prepare yourself for that. If you're interested in learning about the impacts of the fashion industry, Slay is a great one. Slay, the last time I checked, I don't think it was on any of the major streaming platforms. You had to get it just directly off the internet, maybe on their website. But that was, really terrific. And another one too that if you did some Googling is They're Trying to Kill Us. And if you know from Instagram, the Badass Vegan, he is involved with it. And I thought that was really impactful that touches on the impacts of animal products on communities of color and how that oppresses them and health impacts. That was also great too. So, as we start to wrap up here, are there things that you wish you would have known before you went vegan?
I mean, I wish I would have done it a lot sooner.
I think a lot of people say that, actually. That's interesting. I didn't expect you to say that.
I mean, I think before I was vegetarian and before I was vegan, I mean, I look at pictures and I was like, I was a little overweight. I mean, I wasn't really running then. I really wasn't doing much. I mean, I'm surprised I snagged a lovely lady like yourself. It was like, I don't know. When I look back at those times and it was like, I feel like I was much more unhealthy then. And I feel like I'm much healthier now. And I look at, I look at other people that I've grown up with, and who I love and still love, and you know, they always say to me, they say, you haven't really changed much. Have you aged? Like you look like the same that you did
You
like
love
10 years
that.
ago. Oh my god, do I love it? But it's kind of true. Like, I mean, I feel great. Um, I feel like I still look young.
But is there anything else that you wish you would have known as far as, like, ways to do it, to, do it better?
I mean,
Anything along those lines?
I mean, I wish I would have like done more cooking when I was younger, um, and maybe as far as like becoming a vegan, um, I don't think there's anything like really that sticks out to me. I think I feel it's a process. I feel like there's like stages to being vegan, and I probably annoy you by having used this a few times, but like I feel like first comes how you eat and cutting out all this food when you become vegan, and then comes like starting to think about all the products that are in your life and what you're purchasing and where your dollars are going and trying to be sustainable, and then like putting that all together and like trying to be the best version of yourself and helping others to become that if they want your help, and avoiding situations that make you uncomfortable. And so it's just growing and becoming more confident in who you are. I can't instill that confidence in the 10 years ago Matt until he experiences a lot of the things that he has experienced. So um, I don't think I would change anything that I've done or how I've done it, other than I would just become vegan sooner in life.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. I think I feel the same way as well. I wish that I would have just come to terms with things a little bit sooner as far as the vegan side of things. I mean, the vegetarian side of things for me, I started when I was 12. So, I mean, unless I had had like help even sooner than that, that would have been kind of difficult. Or, a parent that was going to instill that, that would have kind of been impossible. But I agree. I agree. I think that's a good place to end this today. And I thank you for sharing your journey. And I hope that your journey helps somebody else who is listening or thinking about it. And if somebody is thinking about it and has questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out. And, we can help in any way that we possibly can with, recipes, advice, listening, giving you product suggestions. We've tried a lot of things, but as Matt said, you don't have to swap out all of those things. You can stick to really basic things as you want. Um, it's however you want to go about this. So you don't forget that there is not a right way to go down this path. There's whatever way works best for you. And if you are looking for more documentary suggestions, if you are looking for food suggestions in certain cities, if you're looking for gift suggestions, quite a bit of that you can find on my website. And then, of course, everybody knows Happy Cow. Happy Cow is another great resource for finding food in different places, from large cities to really tiny rural ones. And that can be a great way to, increase your awareness of what's already around you in your home or when you are on the road. But until next time, keep spreading those green vibes.